To our future scientists, welcome. I am Tolofelo. In this part of the lesson, we are going to be looking at the practice and application questions on the circulatory system. For our practice questions, we have the first question. There is a diagrammatic representation of the heart, and the first question states, study the diagram of the human heart to answer the questions that follow. So whenever you receive a diagram in life sciences, it is important that you start off by labeling it. That will make your life easier when you have to start answering questions. Okay, so here we are going to label our diagram. As A, we have the aorta. B, we have a blue blood vessel, and it's branching out in the two directions. So that shows us that that is our pulmonary artery. C, we have its two blood vessels on this side and two behind, also they appear behind the heart. So this shows us that these are the blood vessels that allow oxygenated blood back into the heart. They are coming from the lungs. So these are our pulmonary veins. And then, okay, we forgot to do something. Also, when you have an organ, you must remember to label the left and the right part. As we all know, if you are looking at the picture, your left becomes right on the diagram. And your right becomes left on the diagram. So these are the chambers of the heart. It's the bottom chamber, which is on the left. That we know is our left ventricle. Then we have E pointing to basically the heart, the wall of the ventricle. So we will say this is the wall of the left ventricle. And then moving to G, we know that a vessel that leads to the right atrium is called the vena cava. That one is on top, so we know it's the superior. Superior vena cava. G is the right atrium. And then F points to the aorta again. The aorta is a big, or the main artery. It splits going to different parts of the body, and then it appears there at the back again. So F is also the aorta. Okay, so this means we are now ready to answer our questions. Okay. Question 1. Identify the heart chambers labeled D and G. Okay, so we all label it here. Write the alphabet D hyphen. D is the left ventricle. And G is the right atrium. We move on to our next question. We are still looking at the diagram of the heart. Okay, so from the previous slide, we saw that we had already labeled the chambers labeled D and G, and bringing it onto the slide, we know that D is the left ventricle. And G is the right atrium. Okay. Number 2 states that, or requires us to write down the letter and the name of the artery that carries A, oxygenated blood, and B, deoxygenated blood. So we are fortunate this diagram has color. So we are looking for an artery that contains or carries oxygenated blood. Let us look at the red ones. We know that A is the aorta. C is also a red blood vessel, but that is the pulmonary vein, like we have labeled in our diagram on the first slide. So our answer for 2A will be the aorta. And then B, we are looking for an artery that carries deoxygenated blood. So our first sign will be, okay, the blue blood vessels there, we know. Those are the vena cava, so those are veins. This one is the pulmonary artery. So this is what we are looking for. Let's just make sure that we have answered our question fully. It says write down the letter and the name of the artery that carries oxygenated blood and deoxygenated blood. We've written down the names of the arteries. We just need to add in the letters. Okay, so the aorta is found at A and the pulmonary artery is found at B. Now moving on to our last question, question 3. Says explain why the walls of the left ventricle are thicker than the walls of the right ventricle. So we are comparing this part of the wall and that part of the wall of our ventricle. Okay, we have our right-hand side and our left-hand side. We know that blood flows from the atrium, right atrium, into the ventricle, the right ventricle, and when it's in the right ventricle, it has to move to the lungs through the pulmonary artery. So from this, we know that when a blood is in the right hand or right part of the heart, it only needs to be pushed up to one set of organs, and that is the lungs. So we can say that the right ventricle only transports blood to the lungs, and then the left ventricle, we know that when the blood comes back, when it's in the lungs and it comes back to the heart, it will flow through the left atrium into the left ventricle, and then into the aorta, where it's distributed to different parts of our body. So the left ventricle transports blood through the aorta. The aorta then has to transport the blood to different parts of the body, and this requires more pressure. Due to this increased pressure, the left ventricle walls have to be thicker. So this shows why the two walls, the thickness, there is a difference in the thickness of the two walls. Basically, the left ventricle has a thicker wall compared to the wall of the right ventricle. Let us take a short break and we will be back with more questions.